Grow Your Business in Lockdown in partnership between Gilligan Sheppard and ourselves at the Sales Mastery Company. I've got Lisa Garrud with me right now. How are you doing, Lisa?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm awesome. I'm loving this, and I'm loving the discussion we had off air. We're both incredibly passionate about giving Kiwi businesses practical steps to improve. As I mentioned before, today we're focused on the online marketing strategy. If you missed the first part as part of this series, then go back and watch that. It's on the online space for Gilligan Sheppard, or reach out to Lisa if you can't find that. That was about the marketing strategy overall. Today, we're going to both focus around the online marketing before parts 3 and 4 is more around the sales or the human to human aspect of marketing. So let's look at the challenges so many of Lisa's and our clients, not just in New Zealand, but around the world, are faced with right now. The fact is we just can't reach our customers in the same way. They're either time poor, they're in lockdown, we just can't reach them in a traditional sense. And number 2, and this is something I know, Lisa, you're really passionate about as well, is the fact of the customer journey in the world we've lived in for the last 20 years being digital goes online, offline, both in the prospecting new client relationship side of things, but also after we've retained clients. You know, we might meet them face to face, we might deliver the product face to face, and then it might be we hop on the phone, which is again offline essentially, and then they might interact with our newsletter, which is online, offline, and we need to get good in both of those areas. And then likewise, we've got to be able to manage our marketing from anywhere. Lisa, I know you've got some views on that. You know, you've been obviously helping a lot of clients in the last few months, and particularly in the last year and a half, about them being able to manage their marketing from home or from the office. What have you seen?
I've basically seen that every business is very different. The audience is always different. The audience also are the ones who jump on and offline. They're sick of spending time on screen, so they jump off a lot. Then they see an article somewhere and they go, oh, that's great, and they jump back online and they resubscribe. They are in and out all the time as well, and you just have to roll with them. Absolutely.
And I love that. You know, our job as business owners, as managers, as marketers, as salespeople is simply to serve our customers. So wherever they want to be is where we need to think about being ourselves, because our whole purpose of any business is to serve others. For those of you who missed session 1 or part 1, as you can probably tell from my accent, I was born in the UK, raised in Switzerland and France, lived in Australia for a while, been in New Zealand for just over 18 years now. And we've delivered training in both sales and marketing in 10 countries in person and over 20 online. And what we're most proud about is helping small to medium businesses essentially make more sales. Lisa, I'll ask you to expand on, I guess, your passion of marketing in a moment. But for those of you who don't know Lisa at Gilligan Sheppard, she's got over 28 years of experience in marketing. She's got a diploma in that online and social media space of marketing, and how she's really passionate around the words aspect and the digital aspect around marketing. And Lisa, what do you love best about marketing?
I love that you can take language and you can attract new customers. You can also use different language and retain your existing customers to make them fall in love with you and your brand.
Perfect. I love that. And I love that you're thinking there about the same thing every business needs to think about. What am I doing to attract new, and more importantly, the right new ones? And I know, Lisa, you're very passionate about using the right wording to attract the right customers, not just anybody new, but the right ones. And also thinking about long-term, thinking about retention of existing customers. So Lisa, we often talk about the 3-second rule. And this has been something that in the early days, they talked about this being 14 seconds. Now it's 3. America's even saying this is now starting to happen in 2 seconds. What are the 3 things people have got to get right in that first, I hit your landing page or I hit your website homepage and I've got to get right?
It's basically the who, what, why. Who are you? I need to be able to see the name of your business. Usually that is the logo at the top left corner. People quickly scan from top left and down, and then they'll come back up again to read thoroughly. Whether they trust the website, that's pretty much the what. Are you saying what I'm looking for? A big part of that is Google will keep changing things to make sure that your website is secure and safe. Security certificates being the most common one at the moment. If it doesn't have a little padlock next to your website address, look into getting one. It's very important. It's basically like sealing an envelope before you send something in the mail. And what it's about, I'm trying to find a solution to my problem. does your website in the first 2 or 3 seconds say that you are what I'm looking for?
Perfect. I think that's a great summary. I know you and I talked off air, Lisa. One of the challenges for a lot of businesses, there's obviously the technical aspect of security. But if you've got 20 years of experience, tell people you've got 20 years of experience. If you're a member of Master Builders or Master Plumbers, tell us that you got a membership. Whatever you're doing to add credibility, I find when we do analyze our clients' websites worldwide, not that we build websites ourselves, unlike yourselves can help build websites, we just find that second one is the one that most people skip over. So it's the one I'd really encourage you, look at your website straight away, reach out to Lisa and the team if you do need extra help around that. Now, this is something I'm incredibly passionate about, because for me, when we teach sales or we teach marketing, we just care what people are going to do with it. Did you want to speak about the sort of macro, micro goal at all?
What I will say is that, especially in lockdown, a lot of work comes via word of mouth and referral.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know an electrician that's good? Somebody will refer them. The first thing that person's going to do is jump online and check them out. This is where your online presence is the backup to that word of mouth referral. So the macro goal should be, what is that website saying to the person who's come to check you out?
Absolutely. I love that. And then if we go one step beyond it, if you're reviewing your website, maybe you're pausing this video and checking out your website, you've just looked at the 3-second rule. When we think about what is your macro goal, we're saying, what do we want to say to them? And then more importantly, what action do we then want them to take? So having said what we've got to say, is it clear and obvious? If you're expecting to receive a phone call, can I see the phone number on every single page? Does it say the word, either a little symbol of a phone, or does it say call? Or even call now, because that's going to incite someone more likely to pick up the phone. That's been proven for a decade now. Also, if I don't do what you want me to do, if I don't phone you, what's the next best thing? What else would you want me to do? What we often see, I'm sure Lisa's had this conversation dozens of times as well, is we say to people, what's the purpose of your website overall? And they say, we want people to fill out a form or make an inquiry. And then we say, great, well, where's that form? It's not on every page. And that's the thing you want me to do most. But then I ask the second question, I'm sure Lisa does the same, which is, if someone doesn't fill in that form, just like you want to receive the inquiries, what does a customer want to do? Would they prefer to pick up the phone or send you an email or send you a text message or hit you up on social media? What does a client want? Remember, we're in business to serve others. One of the philosophical shifts we've had, my wife and I published a few years ago in the UK on how small business should write and implement marketing plans. And what we say to them is, when you write a marketing plan and when you create a website off the back end of that, your website is there to serve your customers. You pay for it, you update it, you have the hassle of, putting new content on it, making sure it's secure, making sure the images all load, the videos will play perfectly. But your website belongs to your customers. It is there for their purpose. It's not for your purpose. You might have an intranet or you might have your own systems for that, but the website is to serve your customers. So set a macro goal of the main purpose of your website. Think about it from your perspective and think about it from the client's perspective. And then think about every page on your website, which is referred to then as a micro goal. What do you want someone to do at the end of every page? Not just overall, but when I go down and look at a product page or download a product spec sheet or detailed data sheet, what do you then want me to do? Have you got any other final tips on websites, Lisa?
I will say language also forms a big part of your calls to action.
Mm-hmm.
The quick tip that I always give is, don't use the words, don't hesitate to give us a call, because you're starting off with a negative. Say, please call us, and be more positive and encouraging.
Absolutely. And that, of course, comes down to just the way we neurolinguistically program ourselves at a human level. If you say, don't do this, the first thing the person does is say, well, great, I'm going to turn off from that. The same way parents are guilty of saying to children, don't drop that cup of tea, or don't drop that glass of water, or don't drop the ice cream. And you actually start to program somebody to doing it, because eventually their brain filters out the don't, and then they drop the cup of tea. But that's for parenting for another day. So when we think about ranking, so you talked, Lisa, that Google is changing. In fact, Google tweaks its algorithms pretty much every 6 weeks, seems to be the standard acceptance of frequency. There are about 200 different spiders, if you come to terminology around that, which basically means algorithms or programs that crawl on every single page that is logged onto Google, because you have to tell Google to go and check out your page. Now, of those 200 different algorithms, they're searching for something in excess of 1,950 different factors. So there's a lot of complexity. Have you got any thoughts, Lisa, on, obviously this slide covers some of the better areas that we can all fix up manually ourselves. Any thoughts around SEO or improving that?
I think there are some basics that business owners can implement themselves, making sure that their content has got the answer that the customer is searching for on Google.
Definitely.
Google loves that. If you answer a question well, it'll start ranking your answer higher. Keeping your site refreshed is always a bonus because it means Google has to keep coming back to your website, which helps it rank higher. And then, of course, leveraging your social media channels and other areas of where you can have content that link back to your website, drive traffic as well. What you don't want to have is all of the bad things. You want to make sure it is secure. You want to make sure that you haven't used your email address to spam people that gets assigned to your domain name. There are some basic things that business owners can do themselves. Where you don't have the time or the skills, absolutely think about engaging somebody to do it for you.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. As I said, you know, we've never done a doing for others. We'd like to educate people and empower them to work with experts like yourselves. The key, and I would stress this, and Lisa, this suits really well because obviously you're a content, you know, expert, is that Google is trying to read websites these days as if a human did it. So gone are the days where you can do sort of keyword stuffing, which is when, you know, for us, they set on sales training, we would have gone, you know, welcome to the Sales Mastery Company, experts in sales training. If sales training is what you want, sales training is what we've got, because Google knows that's stupid language. So the more you actually do the correct language for a human, the more Google's going to start to rate that. And that's been a big shift over the last 5 to 10 years. Any thoughts on that, Lisa?
You can say an answer to a question probably 10 different ways. So if you can do that on your website, you're bound to get your answer ranking.
Love the sound of that. Excellent. Now, online advertising, there are obviously, this is a growing space. This is what we often refer to rather than search engine optimization, which is more the Google or Bing or Yahoo ranking. This is more SEM, so search engine marketing. So you're paying for that. The three common scenarios, and they all have different purposes. There's the display advertising. So think regular magazine or newspaper, think a strip that's promoting your business. Display, you're going to pay per impression or per person that's essentially seen it. Cost per or pay per click, cost per click, same thing. Google advertising, again, you see those sort of 4 ads at the top of Google, no longer down the side, now at the top of Google. And those, obviously, you only pay, you pay to get it set up if you are using an expert, but if you do it yourself, you won't be doing that. And you'll pay every time someone clicks. Personally, I don't resent the billions that Google makes off advertising because at least they're only charging when somebody clicks on it. Now, it does mean you need to have intelligence. You don't want to attract the wrong customers and have it put it into the wrong countries, for example. If you're not selling into Azerbaijan, you don't need to be displayed there. But the reality here is, you know, Google advertising pay-per-click's a really affordable way for you to sort of dip your, you know, toe in the water. You can think about, you know, $1 a day, $5, $20 a day, test it, measure it. And remarketing is what you typically look at next. So once you've got the average person who visits your homepage for the first time, whether it's come through social media, whether it's come through a search engine optimization, a Google search, or from paid advertising, normally only between 1 or at most 3% of visitors are in a position ready to buy. So remarketing is when you post other adverts or attraction to them later on. You might have seen this, that you go and check on the weather website or news website, up pops an advert from a website you visited. Now, have you got any thoughts around those, any one of those three, Lisa?
I love it how in New Zealand we haven't gone on to the dark side of this. The dark side being that, you know, you start doing Google AdWords whenever somebody enters your competitors' keywords, things like that, or competitors multi-clicking on your ads to try and use up your budget so your ad doesn't show anymore. I like that. I guess it's the positive aspect of tall poppy syndrome. It doesn't happen so much in New Zealand. I really like that about our culture.
Me too. Me too. That's maybe how we did the whole team of 5 million so well a year and a half ago. And certainly remarketing often, you know, this is obviously a big topic, but in New Zealand, we don't tend to do the spamming thing. Some people will say to me, oh, look, I don't want to do remarketing. So I don't want to annoy people or spam people. Well, what's great about your remarketing is you can decide that your ad might only appear to them, once or twice during the day. What doesn't happen in this country, thankfully, is then it appears 20 times that day, because that irritates people and switches them off from your brand. So it's counterproductive anyway. Now, I know, Lisa, that you're incredibly passionate around newsletters. I also know that particularly in trades, commodity type products, supplies of small products, e-blasts or e-shots, the language changes from one country to the next on those two. Those are really popular. Have you got any thoughts between e-newsletters and those sort of e-shots, e-blasts?
It was a discussion we were having off air, and I'm not a huge fan of the e-blast, where it is purely sell, sell, sell. Right, there are certain situations where that does work. If you've got some leftover sanitizer that you're trying to get rid of in a promotional company, then an e-blast would work well for that. However, a lot of people will unsubscribe from that if they're not getting value from it. And I am all about the value. Educational, helping, free advice, so that the customer comes back to you because they know that you're a good source of advice. So I am a fan of the e-newsletter more than the e-blasts.
I would absolutely support that. One of the themes, this has been a popular theme we've taught for 17 years now, is to say you've always got to give more than you get in life. Now, given that we are living in this world where we're in and out of lockdown, where there's been obviously people questioning, leaders, brands, companies, family members, and friends, in particular the last year and a half, trust is even more important now. It's even more needed now. So when your philosophy around this is we want to serve, we want to add value, we want to educate, in some cases even just entertain, or that cross between sort of entertainment and education of our customers, that's got to be our philosophy now. Because once somebody unsubscribes from your newsletter, it's really hard work to get them back on, because legally you can't breach their privacy, and you certainly can't breach this anti-spamming laws. So you can't just resubscribe them because you feel like it. Once they're off until earned back. So you might never get them back. So give more than you get. As Lisa said, if you've got products you need to shift, if it's legitimately, it's the end of the season, or there's a deadline, or there's a new container landed and getting it to market, that's okay. But the vast majority of your email communication, as you said, Lisa, needs to be about adding value. So what are some things people can put into their newsletter to demonstrate adding value?
There are all kinds of articles that you can find that are hot topics. And you comment on them as a business or as your personal opinion and try and drum up conversation. There's articles about, if you took bookkeeping, for example, you might talk about how business owners can save time, and yours won't be the only one. It'll be a whole lot of other things that they can do to save time, and outsourcing your bookkeeping might just be one of them. That's where you're adding value, but you're also saying, come to me.
Excellent. I really love the sound of that. So to me, if you're going to put a newsletter together, thinking of it maybe being a couple of pages of A4, if you were to print the thing, think about 3/4 of it being, here's some tips, here's some advice, maybe here's a video, and then at the bottom, and here's a promotion on a product or a service we've got. Any final thoughts around that newsletter side of things?
Just be aware of how often your market is happy to be contacted. You don't want to overdo it, and you don't want them to forget you either.
Absolutely. Now, again, another question we typically get asked, and different research around the world, talks about these numbers. But as a general rule, long term, people talk about it, about a 16% open rate. So that means sort of 1 in 6 people are going to open a newsletter. So if you've got a better open rate than that, it means 2 things. Number 1, you've probably got a better database than the average company does around the world. And number 2, you're delivering great value. Just like Lisa said, this is all about adding value. Given that most of the customers we serve, I know Lisa serves as well, say to us along the lines of 3/4 of my income comes from repeat customers or referrals from them. So this is a great way for you to increase the repetition and the loyalty, or the referrals as well. Now, social media, Lisa, I know you're qualified with a diploma in this. So this is often an investment of time as opposed to money. This isn't something that you need to set aside $1 million and hire an amazing team internationally to do for you. Are there any golden rules you abide by on behalf of your clients?
I would say that I don't let the time thing scare you. Yes, you need to put time into looking after your channels, But what you can do is you can set aside 3 or 4 hours to come up with a plan that can last a couple of months. So you only need to do it every now and then.
Absolutely. I love the sound of that. Things like, Hootsuite or Sprout Social, and there's a whole bunch of different software you can use where you can set aside half a day, maybe once a quarter, and put together all your posts and then have them drip fed. I guess for me, the only other comment is social media is meant to be social. So you do need someone to monitor that. So if someone makes a complaint or makes a recommendation or asks a question, somebody on a day-to-day basis is keeping an eye on that. Obviously, some platforms want that response really quickly. Some don't. For me, one of the things I love, because my clients sell business to business rather than being hospitality and retail, LinkedIn is where I spend my time because that's very B2B as a platform. And if someone posted a question or comment to me and I didn't respond for a week, they'd probably be okay with that. A little irritated, but they would be okay. Facebook, they typically want a response, within that day. Twitter, within the hour, others they think you're dead. So as a general rule, different platforms and channels have a different response rate. Any thoughts on that, Lisa?
Just be prepared to be sociable with your customers.
It's called social media. Even LinkedIn, which is the most business-like of all of the platforms or mainstream platforms, there's that. Now, obviously, you and I have talked about this before, not just prior to recording today, but in general. Facebook has been preaching for 10 years or more that the proportion of the giving needs to be well in excess of what you self-promote. They've said that if you're going to break it down, it's 70%, 20%, 10%. Any thoughts on this?
Yeah, I do like this formula, but it can, again, the idea of trying to come up, if you're doing 10 posts, trying to come up with 7 posts that add value and brand recognition can be a little bit overwhelming or daunting.
Mm-hmm.
Don't think of it that way. If you've got 1 or 2 articles about whatever it was that you attempted to do lately, save time as a business owner, for example, you could 7 times mention that article in a different way with different pieces of the content and information that's in there. And that's already 7 out of your 10 posts done from 1 article.
I love that. I talk about, positive laziness with business coaches, or business owners we coach around the world. So what you can do at a really practical level is you can put together, again, if you get stuck, use an expert, but you put together a really good newsletter article that then is going to go onto your website. So therefore, Google's going to trawl your website and go, oh, there's an update. And they'll trawl the content within it if you post it correctly. And then you could break it into 7 parts. And then that's 7 social media posts. And if you go and do that, you've ticked the box on the 70%, and then maybe share a couple of press articles you think are relevant, or comment on some of your customers' posts, for example, maybe even some supplier posts if it's appropriate. There's your 70 and the 20. And if that's the case, then you can self-promote. But the key, just like the e-blasts or e-shots, you've got to earn the right. You've got to give, and then you try to take or self-promote. And if you get that proportion right, you'll build that massive loyalty. Any other final thoughts on those things, Lisa?
Some people are a bit concerned that 10% isn't enough. But just remember, if those 7 posts are from an article on your website, and your website has the calls to action on the bottom of every page, technically it's also a promotional post. So don't worry about that 10% number being so low. Definitely.
Or do more than the 90%, right?
Yeah.
Excellent. Now, I've always loved digital marketing, particularly when I compare it to, say, TV advertising, newspaper advertising, magazine advertising, and traditional forms of media or advertising. Because of the testing and measures, why are you pro digital marketing as part of someone's marketing strategy?
I just think different customers live in different places. And that includes channels. So it's not that you have to be everywhere, you just have to be where your customers are.
Absolutely.
If they are everywhere, then yes, you might have a bit of a daunting task ahead of you to try and live in all of those spaces. But if they're entrepreneurial, family oriented, that kind of thing, then Facebook might be your thing. If they are existing business owners looking to improve, then LinkedIn might be your thing. If you're selling a product that is to a younger generation, then you're going to have to learn how to use TikTok.
Absolutely. Yeah, embarrassingly so. That's my 12 and 18-year-old daughters telling me that we need to be on TikTok. And embarrassingly, we've joined them on theirs, but not on ours, thankfully. So I'll save everyone a lot of hassle searching for us on that one. Obviously, I'm conscious of everybody's time, and Lisa, I'll ask you for your final thought in a moment. If you do want to, if you're not part of the Gilligan Sheppard newsletter to see how they do it really, really well, join theirs. You can do the same off our website as well. If you want to flick either Lisa or myself any sort of questions from today's topic or extra help you might need, or just a boost of motivation. We're both active in different social media channels. As I mentioned, for me, that's more in the LinkedIn space. I know, Lisa, you're active in LinkedIn, but also in Facebook as well. Any lucky last thoughts for this part 2 of this 4-part series, Lisa?
I would just say, do something. Take a first step. Look at your Facebook and do something on it. Look at your website and do something on it. Pick one and just do it. And I think you'll find that that will lead to the next thing.
Absolutely wonderful. Lisa, thanks for being here. On behalf of the Sales Mastery Company and on behalf of Gilligan Sheppard, it's been a privilege. Congratulations to you for taking this time. But in the quote of Lisa, do something now. Nailed it, Lisa. That was brilliant.
You just had a little